You only have to look what's happening in Washington, D.C., in LA, in Chicago, in numerous cities across the country to say that is indeed pretty imaginable. You could really see that happening.
Going across the pond now, because the three leading candidates for mayor of New York City came out swinging overnight, trading personal blows during their final debate, and last hope to show voters their ideas and leadership style.
My adversaries have decided to bump chess with President Trump to prove who's more macho. You can't beat Trump.
You're wrong. You're going to have to confront President Trump, and you can beat him. I confronted him, and I have beaten him.
We first just heard from the Republican candidate for mayor, and then we heard from Donald Trump's puppet himself, Andrew Cuomo.
So we heard Democrat Zohran Mamdani, just last speaker there, the independent Andrew Cuomo, former governor of New York State, and the Republican, the founder of the Guardian Angels, Curtis Sliwa, debating who would be best to interact with President Trump as mayor of New York. But they did talk about a lot of other things apart from that. Let's have a chat to New York-based journalist Harriet Alexander. Harriet, this is getting loads and loads of coverage. This was a very, very, I watched some of it, exciting and zingy debate.
It really was, yeah. And I think it's been rare to have a debate, a contest for New York mayor that's been quite so fascinating. To remind all of your listeners, Mamdani was a total outsider earlier this year, but he really stormed onto the political stage. And now it looks very much like he is about to become the first Muslim mayor of New York City.
And what is it that people see in him? What is it that they're voting for? And can you contrast that with the guy who has the family name, the legacy, Andrew Cuomo, 3 times elected governor? What is it they're seeing?
Well, what they're seeing in him is energy. They're seeing passion. They're seeing someone who they believe will speak for them. They see someone who is an outsider from the political establishment. He was a member of the local government up in Albany in New York, but he's not, as you said, from this dynasty like Andrew Cuomo, who's a household name in the United States. Mamdani is really a fresh face. He's obviously much younger. He's only 34. He's a real social media native. Of course, concerns have been raised about his youth and inexperience, but he turned 34 earlier this week, and he said he will make a solemn promise to get older every single day.
He's got a line or two, hasn't he?
He really does, yeah.
So at 34, I think he's exactly half the age of Cuomo. I think Cuomo is 68. And how large is the shadow of President Trump looming over all of this?
Oh, it really is, hugely. I mean, it's quite intriguing, Henry, when you look at it, because many people are suggesting that actually Trump would really like Mamdani to be elected, because then it gives him a really good foil. Trump is hoping that Mamdani is elected and that it's a disaster, and that he can then use this and say, this is what happens if you usher in a left-wing government.
Yep. And I suppose if, Mamdani wins, then he could send in his troops. He could declare New York ungovernable. How realistic a threat is that?
Do you know, until a few months ago, you would have said very unrealistic, wouldn't you? And yet you only have to look what's happening in Washington, D.C., in LA, in Chicago, in numerous cities across the country to say that is indeed pretty imaginable. You could really see that happening. Mamdani will have his work cut out for him. There's no two ways about it. And the fact that he is the first, or he would be the first Muslim governor of New York, is obviously something that is being commented on extensively. And Cuomo just this morning, so the day after the debate, he was asked about it on a radio show. Cuomo said, could you imagine having Mamdani in charge if there's another 9/11? Imagine the inexperience. And the radio host said, yes, Mamdani would be laughing at this. And Cuomo, he sort of chuckled and he said, well, there is that problem, which I think really...
What about a dog whistle?
Yeah, exactly. And Cuomo's campaign also, during the debate last night, they released this AI-generated video which showed Mamdani. He was born in Uganda to Indian parents. He's a nationalized US citizen. Showed Mamdani running through the streets of New York, eating handfuls of rice. So again, another dog whistle to that, and saying that Mamdani is supported by criminals. And the criminals were a black shoplifter and a sort of Hispanic-looking pimp who was prostituting white girls. So there's an awful lot of racial context to all of this as well.
But this is a pitch to the Democratic electorate, and New York is at its heart a Democratic-leaning city. How do you think those attacks will play with the electorate? And what about the Democratic establishment, which since the return of Trump has been seen as sclerotic and ineffective and pretty useless?
I think that AI video in particular was very immediately seen as being really distasteful and unpleasant. The Cuomo campaign deleted it pretty quickly after there was this outrage, and they said, oh, it was never authorized. It should never have gone live. So, you know, people are very much aware of these attacks. Of course, New York is the financial heart of the United States with Wall Street here. So it's definitely fair to say that some people are concerned in the city about his policies, his focus on affordability, his focus on free bus transport and free childcare. People are asking how that's going to be paid for, and he's going to increase taxes on the wealthiest, on those earning more than $2 million, and on corporations. So, of course, some people in Manhattan in particular are not going to like that. But to your point about how this is perceived on a wider stage, I think it would be wrong to say, you know, Mamdani is setting the tone for the whole country. Sure, he's a fresh face and he's energized the electorate here in New York City, but New York is not the United States writ large, and some of the things that he's proposing are certainly far too left-wing for the rest of the United States, even for Democrats.
Wow. Harriet Alexander, live from New York. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on Times Radio. A fascinating contest that's proving to be.
Significance of Adams dropping out of the race. Does this surprise you?
You know, it is something that has been rumored for quite some time, that this would be the month, this would be the week, this would be the day, and today we've finally seen it. Yet it is also an encapsulation of so much of what has characterized Eric Adams' mayoralty, is decisions at the behest of Donald Trump and his billionaire donors and at the expense of working-class New Yorkers. And what we see in this moment is very much what we saw the day we started this campaign on October 23rd. A necessity to finally stand up to the days of big money and small ideas being what characterizes City Hall, and instead delivering for the very working-class New Yorkers that are being priced out of that same city. He speaks about the necessity of lowering costs, of improving quality of life, of keeping New Yorkers safe. And I don't contest the diagnosis. I contest his delivery, however. This is a mayor who raised the rent by 12% on more than 2 million New Yorkers, a mayor who priced New Yorkers further out of childcare, a mayor who has time and time again exacerbated a cost of living crisis, whether by raising the water bill or supporting Con Edison when they wanted to raise gas and electric. And so I wouldn't take advice on addressing that same crisis from the man who's been inflaming it time and time again.